7 archaeological discoveries that seem impossible, but they're 100% real. Hello, and welcome to Ancient History. Dear friends, human history has always been like a massive book, with countless pages still buried beneath the earth. Every time archaeologists carefully sweep away the dust of time with a small brush, they sometimes uncover far more than an ancient artifact. They accidentally awaken secrets that send chills through the entire world. Some discoveries have completely changed what we thought we knew about powerful emperors. Others have uncovered skeletons so strange they bring to mind the legends of vampires. And then there are mummies that, even after thousands of years, still preserve the evidence of horrifying murders. In today's video, we'll explore 7 archaeological discoveries that seem impossible, yet are 100% real. We'll begin with a mysterious pregnant woman buried alongside China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, where scientists have wondered whether her unborn child could have been the last surviving descendant of the emperor himself. Then we'll travel to Poland, where 3 skeletons pinned to the ground with iron stakes reveal the terrifying fear of vampires during the Middle Ages. After that, we'll visit a mysterious ghost cave near the Great Wall of China, where more than 600 human skeletons have remained undisturbed for over 1,000 years. But that's only the beginning. We'll also uncover the story of Takabuti, a 2,600-year-old Egyptian mummy whose long-hidden voice has finally been revealed through modern technology. We'll examine blood-red footprints found on a coffin from China's Warring States period, a 5,000-year-old crystal knife discovered in Spain, and South American mummies that have exposed evidence of brutal ancient murders. It all sounds like something straight out of a movie, doesn't it? But the most unsettling part is this: every one of these discoveries is absolutely real. So join me as we uncover the incredible secrets that time has tried to bury for thousands of years. Are you ready to begin today's journey with me? If you are, let's get started. The pregnant mummy, buried with Qin Shi Huang, was the unborn child, the last descendant of China's first emperor. When it comes to archaeological mysteries that have fascinated the world for decades, one of the most remarkable is undoubtedly the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang in Xi'an, Shanxi Province, China. Construction of this vast burial complex began around 246 BC, shortly after the first emperor to unify China ascended the throne. Even after more than 2,000 years, the mausoleum continues to guard countless unanswered mysteries. In fact, large sections of the site remain unopened because scientists believe today's preservation technology is still not advanced enough to safely protect whatever remains hidden beneath the ground. Yet the discovery that shocked archaeologists the most had nothing to do with the world-famous terracotta army or priceless treasures of gold and silver. Instead, it was the heartbreaking discovery of a young pregnant woman who appears to have been sacrificed to accompany the emperor into the afterlife. Just imagine that for a moment. A mother who never had the chance to see her child born, and yet both of them remained buried together beneath the earth for more than 2 millennia. That thought alone is enough to send chills down anyone's spine. If you're familiar with ancient Chinese history, you probably know that human sacrifice as part of royal burials was not uncommon. When a king or noble died, servants, soldiers, and palace attendants were often buried alive or executed so they could continue serving their master in the next world. However, historical records indicate that during the Qin dynasty, this practice became far more brutal. During excavations of the auxiliary burial pits surrounding Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum, archaeologists uncovered large numbers of human skeletons scattered throughout the site. Many bodies had been decapitated. Some skeletons still had arrows lodged through their skulls. Others bore evidence of having been hanged before death. The scene made it painfully clear that these people had not been laid to rest with honor. Instead, they appeared to have been victims of a massive sacrificial ritual. Among the hundreds of skeletons, however, one particular discovery forced the entire excavation team to stop and take a closer look. It was the body of a young woman whose abdomen appeared unusually swollen. At first, no one was willing to draw any conclusions. Only after experts used advanced scanning technology and analyzed images from inside the body did they make a startling discovery. The woman had been pregnant. Even more astonishing, the fetus had already reached an advanced stage of development before both mother and child died. That means that for more than 2,000 years, beneath the cold earth, a mother and the child who was never given the chance to be born had remained together in the exact position where they spent their final moments. The discovery immediately raised an extraordinarily sensitive question. Could the unborn child have been Qin Shi Huang's own son or daughter? According to historical records, after Hu Hai, Qin Shi Huang's son and the second emperor of the Qin dynasty, was born, official histories make almost no mention of any additional children fathered by the emperor. However, archaeologists point out that this does not necessarily mean he had no other offspring. As the ruler of a vast empire, Qin Shi Huang had countless imperial consorts and palace women in his harem. It is entirely possible that one of them was summoned by the emperor, became pregnant, and was never officially recorded in historical documents. Of course, this remains only a hypothesis. But if it were true, then the unborn child carried by this young woman could have been a prince or princess completely unknown to history. The tragedy becomes even more disturbing when many scholars connect this discovery to the events that unfolded after Qin Shi Huang died in 210 BC. After ascending the throne, Hu Hai launched a series of brutal political purges to strengthen his authority. Numerous princes, princesses, and anyone else who might have posed a threat to his claim to the throne were executed. If this palace woman truly carried the emperor's bloodline, it is entirely possible that she was forced to die alongside Qin Shi Huang in order to eliminate any potential rival for the succession. Naturally, no DNA analysis conducted to date has been able to establish a biological relationship between the unborn child and Qin Shi Huang with sufficient scientific certainty. Even so, the mere existence of this mother and her unborn child has opened the door to one of the most heartbreaking mysteries in the history of Chinese archaeology. 3 skeletons pinned into the ground in Poland. The truth behind the vampire cemetery that haunted people for centuries. If the story of the pregnant woman buried in Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum leaves us heartbroken by the cruelty of absolute power, then the next discovery takes us into an entirely different kind of fear. It is a fear that gripped nearly all of Europe for centuries, the fear of vampires. Today, when people hear the word vampire, they immediately think of Hollywood movies featuring immortal creatures with pale skin and razor-sharp fangs. But hundreds of years ago, for people across Europe, especially in Eastern Europe and the Balkan region, vampires were not simply legends told for entertainment. They genuinely believed that the dead could rise from their graves, wander the night, drink the blood of the living, and spread disease and misfortune. That belief was so powerful that many communities developed terrifying burial rituals designed to ensure the deceased would never have the chance to rise from the grave again. Centuries later, archaeologists uncovered evidence showing that these stories, which now seem like pure folklore, once had a profound influence on people's lives. One of the most remarkable discoveries was made in the village of Gorzyca, in western Poland near the German border. The site dates back to the 13th and 14th centuries during the Middle Ages. While excavating an area near a Gothic church and what had once been the residence of a former bishop, Polish archaeologists uncovered 3 skeletons buried in such unusual ways that even experienced experts were stunned. The first striking detail was that none of the 3 individuals had been buried according to traditional customs. All 3 had been placed face down. Think about that for a moment. Why would people deliberately bury someone with their face toward the ground instead of facing the sky, as was customary? According to researchers, this was one of the common anti-vampire burial practices of the Middle Ages. People believed that if the dead awoke inside their coffins, they would continue digging deeper into the earth instead of finding their way back to the surface to haunt the living. But that wasn't even the strangest part. As archaeologists carefully cleaned the skeletons, they discovered clear holes running through the spinal columns of all 3 bodies. These marks revealed that each body had once been pinned firmly to the ground with a wooden stake or another sharp object. In other words, even after death, they had literally been nailed to their graves. According to Krzysztof Socha, an expert at the Kostrzyń Fortress Museum in Poland, this is an extremely rare discovery that reflects the overwhelming fear shared by the local community at the time. The people didn't simply want to bury the dead. They wanted absolute certainty that the dead would never rise again. 2 of the 3 skeletons also showed even more disturbing evidence of violence. One belonged to a woman whose knees had been completely smashed. Physical anthropologists determined that she had suffered from a hunchback during her lifetime. Today, this would simply be recognized as a physical deformity, but during the Middle Ages, when medical knowledge was extremely limited, People with unusual physical appearances were often viewed as bad omens or even manifestations of dark magic. Even after her death, this woman was apparently denied a peaceful burial. Superstition transformed her into a vampire in the eyes of her community. The second skeleton belonged to a man who also showed signs of having a hunchback. His body had been dismembered and his head had been severed from the rest of his body. This was another method medieval Europeans believed could prevent a vampire from returning to life. The most disturbing discovery, however, was the third skeleton. It belonged to a man estimated to have been between 30 and 35 years old. During the excavation, archaeologists found that his head had been tightly wedged between two large stones. His spine still bore the unmistakable marks of the stake that had once pierced his body. Have you noticed something? The way his body was treated alone reveals just how terrified people must have been of this man. Across many parts of Eastern Europe, individuals suspected of becoming vampires were not only staked through the body, they might also have bricks placed inside their mouths, heavy stones tied to their bodies, their heads cut off, or even their limbs removed before burial. Every one of these practices served the same purpose, to prevent the dead from returning to harm the living. Interestingly, there is no evidence that any of these three individuals suffered from plague or committed any horrifying acts while they were alive. According to Mr. Socha, the third man's skeleton remains remarkably well preserved and shows absolutely no signs of death caused by an epidemic. This has led researchers to propose that differences in physical appearance, or perhaps rumors circulating within the community, may have been enough to turn these people into victims of fear and superstition. Today, science has explained many of the phenomena that people once believed were supernatural. For example, after death, the skin naturally shrinks, making hair and fingernails appear longer. As decomposition progresses, pressure builds up inside the body and can force reddish fluids from the nose or mouth, leading people in the past to believe the corpse had recently been drinking blood. Bodies buried in cold environments or places with very little oxygen can also decompose much more slowly, making it appear as though the dead were somehow still alive. These seemingly mysterious natural processes help give rise to the vampire legends that spread across Europe. Today, all three skeletons have been transferred to physical anthropologists in Poland for further analysis. Every new discovery not only helps reveal the identities of those who died centuries ago, but also offers a powerful reminder of a time when fear and superstition could determine a person's fate, even long after death. But if these three skeletons reveal the incredible power of blind belief, our next discovery takes us to an even more mysterious place. Just about 25 miles from China's Great Wall, an abandoned cave system that lay hidden for thousands of years unexpectedly revealed more than 600 human skeletons, opening the door to the story of a tribe that had all but vanished from history. Let's find out what archaeologists discovered. More than 600 skeletons beneath the ghost cave, near the Great Wall. The secret of a lost tribe. After 1,000 years. Do you believe that sometimes the ghost stories passed down from generation to generation for hundreds of years can actually become the clues that lead archaeologists to discoveries that change our understanding of history? If not, then come with me to Yangqing County, north of Beijing, China, about 25 miles from the Great Wall of China. Here, a rocky mountain range stretches from east to west. From a distance, it looks completely ordinary, but to the local people, this has long been a place no one wants to visit after sunset. According to elderly residents, the cliffs contain an ancient network of caves known by the haunting name Ghost Yamen, or simply Ghost Cave. Many people have claimed that on the darkest nights, they have seen eerie blue flames flickering at the base of the cliffs. Others insist they have heard strange sounds echoing through the maze of caves, almost like whispers drifting through the darkness. Stories like these caused the entire area to be abandoned for generations. But archaeologists were not quick to believe in the supernatural. They believe that behind every legend lies a truth waiting to be uncovered, and that is exactly what they found. As the research team began surveying the site, they quickly realized that this cave system had not been formed entirely by nature. Before them were hundreds of chambers carved directly into the rock face. Some were only large enough to shelter a single person. Others stretched nearly 65 feet across and contained multiple smaller rooms connected by narrow passageways. What astonished the researchers even more was that many of the caves still preserved traces of fireplaces, sleeping platforms, storage niches, and heating stoves. Some sections were even built on 2 levels, resembling modern loft-style homes. Just think about that. More than 1,000 years ago, without modern machinery, how could people carve an entire city directly into nearly vertical cliffs? According to researchers, the entire complex contains 147 caves of various sizes, most of them connected by winding passageways that form an enormous labyrinth. Because of its incredible size and complexity, many scholars have even described it as China's first ancient maze. Yet the greatest mystery was not hidden inside those stone chambers. What attracted scientists' attention most were the mysterious flames that repeatedly appeared at the foot of the cliffs. At first, many believed they were supernatural, but after careful investigation, experts determined that the blue flames were actually caused by phosphorus igniting when exposed to air. This chemical reaction commonly occurs in places where large numbers of human or animal remains have been buried for extremely long periods. In other words, if phosphorus flames were repeatedly appearing at the base of the mountain, there was a strong possibility that a massive burial site lay beneath the ground. That hypothesis was soon put to the test. After receiving permission to excavate, archaeologists began digging at the base of the cliffs. Within only a few days, the entire research team was left speechless. One layer of human bones after another emerged. Then 10 skeletons, 20, 100. And finally, more than 600 human skeletons were uncovered, lying side by side beneath the earth. The scene stunned everyone, but what was even more astonishing was that every single body had been buried with its head facing exactly the same direction, toward the northeast. Doesn't that seem unusual? If this were simply an ordinary cemetery, why would hundreds of people have been buried in the exact same position and facing precisely the same direction? To answer that question, physical anthropologists immediately began dating the remains using multiple scientific methods. The results showed that the skeletons were approximately 1,000 years old, dating to the Middle and Late Tang Dynasty. Everyday objects buried alongside the dead, including household tools and personal belongings, indicated that these people were not soldiers who had died in battle. They had once been members of a settled community that lived here. But who were they? The answer finally emerged after researchers compared their findings with numerous ancient historical records. Documents from the Tang Dynasty mention a group known as the Shi tribe, a nomadic people who once lived across northern China. After a series of historical upheavals, the tribe gradually declined, and one branch fled to the area now known as Yanqing, near present-day Beijing. Accustomed to life on the open grasslands, they had little experience constructing homes from wood, brick, or stone. Faced with towering cliffs, they devised a remarkable solution. They carved their homes directly into the mountainside. Over many years, one small chamber after another was added until an enormous residential complex had taken shape. It stands as one of the most extraordinary examples of human adaptation to the natural environment ever discovered in northern China. And what about the more than 600 skeletons beneath the mountain? Archaeologists believe they were the cemetery of this very community. The fact that every individual was buried facing northeast was probably no coincidence. Most likely, they were laid to rest facing the homeland of their ancestors, the place their tribe had once called home before war and political turmoil forced them to leave. That single detail reveals something deeply moving. Even after traveling hundreds of miles from their homeland, they never forgot where they came from. At last, the legend of the ghost cave finally made sense. The mysterious blue flames that had terrified local residents for centuries were never ghosts at all. They were simply the natural result of phosphorus escaping from the enormous cemetery hidden beneath the ground. You see, sometimes the most frightening thing isn't ghosts. It's the realization that an entire community once existed here, that they lived, built an entire city carved into the cliffs, and then disappeared from history almost without a trace, leaving behind nothing but a few mysterious legends. Isn't that incredible? The 2,600-year-old mummy of Takabuti reveals a shocking murder mystery. Was the killer striking from behind? Did you know that some mummies simply help us better understand the lives of people from the ancient world? But there are also mummies that, despite lying undisturbed for more than 2,000 years, have silently preserved the evidence of an unsolved murder. That is exactly the story of Takabuti, one of the world's most famous mummies and a name that is well known to anyone fascinated by ancient history. Takabuti once lived in the city of Thebes, the political and religious center of ancient Egypt, now known as Luxor, Egypt. According to researchers, she lived around the 7th century BC, approximately 2,600 years ago. She was no ordinary woman. The inscriptions on her coffin reveal that she belonged to the Egyptian nobility and was married. Given her high social status, many people long believed that she had died from illness or old age before receiving the elaborate mummification ceremony typically reserved for members of the upper class. But the truth turned out to be something entirely different. So what really happened? Let's find out. The story began in 1834, when Takabbouti's mummy was transported from Egypt to Belfast, Northern Ireland in the United Kingdom, where it was placed on public display. Just 1 year later, the linen wrappings covering her body were removed, and from that point on, Takabbouti became one of the most extensively studied mummies in Europe. For nearly 2 centuries, scientists debated the cause of her death. Some believe she had been stabbed with a knife, others argued that the wound was nothing more than damage caused during the mummification process. No one had enough evidence to reach a definitive conclusion. It wasn't until modern technology emerged that the mystery finally began to unravel. A team of experts from the University of Manchester in England and Queen's University, Belfast in Northern Ireland, led by Professor Rosalie David and Professor Eileen Murphy, launched the most comprehensive investigation ever conducted on the mummy. Unlike previous studies, they employed a wide range of advanced technologies, including CT scans, X-rays, DNA analysis, protein analysis, examinations of preserved hair, and detailed studies of the materials used during the mummification process. Their objective was clear. They wanted not only to determine how Takabbouti died, but also to reconstruct the final moments of her life. After years of careful analysis, the results shocked the entire research team. Takabbouti had not died from disease, nor had she died from a minor injury. She was the victim of a murder. Even more astonishing, the fatal attack had come from behind. CT imaging revealed a deep wound in her upper back that passed through soft tissue, cut into a rib, and penetrated deep into her chest cavity. Based on the shape of the wound, experts concluded that the murder weapon was not a knife, as previously believed. Instead, it was most likely a curved-bladed battle axe, a weapon commonly used during conflicts throughout the ancient Near East. According to the team's reconstruction, the attacker either stood on higher ground or raised the weapon as high as possible before delivering a powerful downward blow to Takabbouti's back. The tremendous force drove the axe through her body, fracturing her ribs and causing catastrophic damage to her lungs and major blood vessels. Takabbouti had virtually no chance of surviving. Researchers believe she died very quickly, although she undoubtedly experienced unimaginable pain during her final moments. But what makes this case even more mysterious is the question, who killed Takabbouti? Researchers have proposed 2 main theories. The first suggests that the attacker may have been an Assyrian soldier. During Takabbouti's lifetime, the Assyrian Empire was expanding its territory and repeatedly launching military campaigns toward Egypt. The wars between these 2 great powers were fierce, and Thebes itself experienced periods of conflict and instability. If Takabbouti died during one of these military campaigns, she could easily have become the victim of a sudden attack. However, the second theory is even more intriguing. Researchers believe the killer may have been someone she knew personally. Why? Because if someone were fleeing through the chaos of war, it would have been extremely difficult for an attacker to deliver such a precise blow from behind. The location of the wound and the angle of the strike suggest that Takabbouti was completely unaware of the attack. This raises the possibility that she was attacked by someone she trusted. Could it have been a relative, a member of her own family, or perhaps the victim of a power struggle among the nobles of ancient Egypt? Sadly, after more than 2,600 years, those questions may never be answered with certainty. Beyond uncovering the cause of her death, the research team also learned a great deal about Takabbouti's life. Protein analysis showed that she had been in remarkably good health before her death, with no evidence of any serious illness. Her hair, preserved in extraordinary condition, revealed that it was thick and carefully maintained, a level of grooming usually associated with wealthy members of society. The inscriptions on her coffin confirmed that Takabbouti was a married woman of high social standing in Thebes. That makes her violent death all the more difficult to understand. A healthy noblewoman in her late 20s or early 30s was suddenly killed by a single devastating blow from a battle axe. This was no ordinary death. It was a murder investigation that remained frozen in time for 26 centuries until the technology of the 21st century finally uncovered Takabbouti's last silent testimony. Just thinking about it is chilling. Don't you think so? A blood-red footprint on a 2,000-year-old coffin, the unsolved mystery of the ancient state of Chu. If the mysteries we've explored so far were uncovered through modern technology, then the next story begins with a discovery so astonishing that it left even seasoned archaeologists speechless. Just imagine this. After months of excavation under the scorching sun, layer after layer of ancient soil is carefully removed. At last, a wooden coffin that had remained buried for more than 2,000 years emerges into the light. Everyone expects to find the usual artifacts inside: weapons, bronze objects, or jade ornaments. But the moment the final layer of dirt is cleaned from the coffin lid, the entire excavation team falls silent. Right in the center of the lid is a dark red footprint, so vivid that it looks as though someone had stepped onto the coffin while the paint was still wet. It isn't a crack in the wood. It isn't a stain left by the surrounding soil. It is the unmistakable imprint of a human foot, perfectly preserved directly over the chest area of the person buried inside. This is one of the strangest discoveries ever recorded at a Warring States period tomb in Jingmen, Hubei Province, China. The story began in 2009 when the Hubei Provincial Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology received permission to excavate the Yankang tomb complex in Songlin village, near Jingmen. This large cemetery belonged to the ancient state of Chu and dates back roughly 2,000 to more than 2,300 years. Archaeologists consider it one of the most important sites for studying the culture of the Warring States period. Although excavation conditions were challenging, the archaeological team recovered an impressive collection of valuable artifacts. They uncovered beautifully crafted bronze objects, iron swords, and tools that had survived in remarkably good condition. Ancient bamboo slips containing written records, many of them damaged but still of tremendous historical value. Most impressive of all was a war chariot belonging to a military commander of the state of Chu, preserved almost completely intact despite having rested underground for more than 2 millennia. Yet all of those remarkable discoveries were quickly overshadowed when archaeologists dug deeper and uncovered the mysterious coffin. After hours of carefully removing the soil covering its surface, the strange image gradually came into view: a single red footprint. Not slightly to the left, not slightly to the right, but positioned almost perfectly in the center of the coffin lid. According to precise measurements, the footprint is about 10.2 inches long and nearly 4 inches wide, roughly equivalent to a U.S. men's shoe size 9. What amazed experts was how perfectly proportioned the footprint appeared. Every toe was clearly visible. At first glance, many people would assume someone had stepped onto the coffin only recently. Think about that. A footprint that has survived for more than 2,000 years while retaining such remarkable detail. Isn't that almost impossible to believe? Following the discovery, researchers proposed several different theories. The first carries a rather ominous tone. Based on the number of grave goods and the scale of the tomb, archaeologists believe its owner was most likely a high-ranking military commander or senior government official of the state of Chu. If that is true, he may have fought in numerous wars or presided over many important legal cases during his lifetime. According to ancient beliefs, people who accumulated too much hatred or too many enemies could still be targeted for revenge even after death. For that reason, some scholars suggest that the red footprint may have been deliberately stamped onto the coffin as a curse. Its message would have been something like, "Even though you're dead, I will still trample over you." Such an act would have represented both humiliation and a curse directed at the deceased, a practice that has appeared in several ancient cultures. However, no direct evidence has ever been found to support this theory. Another explanation focuses more on the religious traditions of the state of Chu. Archaeologists have long recognized that the people of Chu possessed a rich spiritual culture. Throughout Chinese history, the state of Chu was known for its strong beliefs in deities, ancestor worship, and elaborate rituals connected to the afterlife. The Chu believed that the soul continued to exist after death. They frequently used symbolic objects during funerals to protect the deceased or guide the soul safely into the next world. From this perspective, the red footprint may not have been a curse at all. Instead, it may have served as a ritual symbol. One theory suggests that it represents the final step taken to bid farewell to the deceased, Another proposes that it functioned as a protective mark, shielding the tomb owner's spirit from evil forces. Unfortunately, no surviving historical records from the state of Chu clearly describe any such burial ritual, and that is precisely why the mystery remains unsolved. What's particularly fascinating is that many archaeologists involved in the excavation admitted they had never encountered anything remotely similar during their entire careers. It appears to be an almost one-of-a-kind discovery. Today, using advanced chemical analysis, researchers continue trying to identify the substance that created the red color. Was it a naturally occurring mineral, a unique organic paint, or perhaps a special pigment used in Chu funeral ceremonies? So far, no definitive answer has been found. Perhaps that is what makes archaeology so captivating. Not every discovery provides a complete explanation. Sometimes it is the unanswered questions that make history feel more alive than ever. Every surviving trace is like a missing piece of an enormous puzzle, challenging generations of scientists to patiently fit those pieces together, one discovery at a time. The crystal dagger, the magical treasure, found among 25 skeletons in a 5,000-year-old tomb in Spain. Dear friends, in archaeology, gold has always been regarded as the ultimate symbol of wealth and power. Whenever an ancient tomb is uncovered, the first things people expect to find are golden jewelry, royal crowns, or other priceless treasures. But our next discovery completely turns that expectation upside down. The artifact that stunned the archaeological world wasn't made of gold, nor was it a diamond or a precious gemstone. Instead, it was a dagger crafted from transparent rock crystal, approximately 5,000 years old. Even more astonishing, experts believe its value far exceeds that of any gold artifact from the same period. Hard to believe, isn't it? So what makes a crystal artifact so extraordinary? Let's travel to the Montelirio Tholos megalithic tomb, located in the Guadalquivir Valley near Seville, southern Spain, to find out. This remarkable archaeological complex is one of Europe's most important prehistoric sites. It was built around 3000 BC, roughly 5,000 years ago. When archaeologists first began excavating the tomb, they expected to uncover the usual prehistoric artifacts, stone tools and pottery similar to those found at many other ancient sites. But as the final layer of soil was carefully removed, something transparent suddenly caught the sunlight. At first glance, several members of the excavation team thought it was simply a piece of modern glass that had accidentally fallen into the trench. Only after they carefully lifted it from the ground did they realize they were holding an object unlike anything ever discovered from a prehistoric civilization. It was a dagger measuring approximately 8.5 inches long. Its blade had been carved entirely from natural rock crystal, so clear that you could see straight through it. The handle, meanwhile, was crafted from ivory and decorated with extraordinarily intricate carvings. Even today, producing a flawless crystal blade without cracking the material requires exceptional skill and precision. Yet 5,000 years ago, long before modern machinery or advanced metalworking tools existed, prehistoric craftspeople had somehow created an object that was astonishingly close to perfection. That alone left experts speechless. According to research published in the scientific journal Quaternary International, the dagger is remarkable not only for its beauty, but also because it demonstrates a level of craftsmanship far beyond what archaeologists once believed prehistoric societies were capable of achieving. Researchers from the University of Granada, the University of Seville, and the Spanish National Research Council conducted an extensive analysis of every detail. Their findings revealed that the crystal used to make the dagger did not originate anywhere near Montelirio. The raw material came from a source located hundreds of miles away. That means the craftspeople had to transport rare crystal over an enormous distance under the extremely difficult travel conditions of prehistoric times. It was an almost unimaginable undertaking. The challenge didn't end there. Although crystal is extremely hard, it is also incredibly brittle. A single mistake while shaping it could shatter the entire piece. To produce a blade that was sharp, perfectly symmetrical, and crystal clear required extraordinary craftsmanship and immense patience. For that reason, many researchers believe this dagger was never intended for everyday use or combat. Instead, it was most likely a symbol of power, or an object used in religious ceremonies, or perhaps a sacred treasure reserved exclusively for society's elite. Of course, the crystal dagger was not the only extraordinary artifact found inside the tomb. As excavations continued, archaeologists uncovered 10 arrowheads, 4 additional blades, and a weapon-making tool, all featuring blades crafted from rock crystal. Although the handles of some of these objects were made from less luxurious materials than ivory, the crystal blades alone made them exceptionally rare and valuable. Beyond the weapons themselves, archaeologists also found pieces of crystal deliberately placed throughout different parts of the tomb, almost as if they had been incorporated into the structure from the very beginning of its construction. According to researchers, this suggests that prehistoric people viewed crystal as far more than simply a rare material. To them, it appears to have symbolized light, authority, and the spiritual world. That is why many scholars have referred to these objects as magical treasures, not because they possessed supernatural powers, but because, for people living 5,000 years ago, crystal may have held sacred meaning, serving as a connection between humanity and the gods, or perhaps their ancestors. Yet the greatest mystery surrounding this discovery lies not with the dagger itself, it lies with the people buried alongside it. According to the excavation, Montelirio Tholos served as the final resting place of 25 individuals, both men and women. At first, researchers assumed they belonged to a powerful noble family, but later analyses revealed an unexpected detail. Evidence preserved in the skeletons suggests that all of them died from poisoning. So what really happened? Were they victims of a mass poisoning, participants in a ritual sacrifice, or did they unknowingly come into contact with a deadly toxic substance in their environment? Even today, archaeologists cannot provide a definitive answer. That is why the crystal dagger is more than just a priceless artifact. It is the last surviving witness to a tragedy that unfolded 5,000 years ago. It reminds us of a civilization capable of creating breathtaking masterpieces of craftsmanship while leaving behind countless mysteries that remain unsolved to this day. 2. 1,000-year-old South American mummies reveal brutal murders, secrets only modern technology could uncover. Dear friends, throughout today's journey, we've explored a series of archaeological discoveries that have astonished the world. Some secrets lay buried beneath the earth for more than 2,000 years. Some skeletons gave rise to haunting vampire legends. And some priceless artifacts have completely changed our understanding of the technological abilities of ancient civilizations. But our final discovery may be the most thought-provoking of all, because it proves that even after an entire millennium, the human body can still tell the story of its final moments. Our story begins in South America, home to some of the driest climates on Earth. These extraordinary natural conditions have allowed countless human remains to become naturally mummified, preserving not only bones but also skin, muscles, tendons, and other soft tissues. That is why South American mummies are often regarded as living archives by archaeologists. Recently, a team of scientists examined 3 mummies dating from approximately 740 to 1,120 years ago, all preserved in museums in Germany and Switzerland. These individuals had originally been excavated in northern Chile and southwestern Peru, regions that were once home to numerous pre-Columbian cultures long before the arrival of the Spanish in the Americas. For many years, researchers believed these individuals had simply died from illness or old age. But when modern technology entered the picture, everything changed. The research team, co-led by Professor Andreas Nerlich, a pathologist at Munich Bogenhausen Hospital in Germany, used CT scans to reconstruct the mummies' bodies as detailed 3D models. Without unwrapping the mummies or causing any damage to these priceless remains, scientists were able to examine every layer of muscle, every joint, every bone, and even injuries hidden deep inside the body. And it was this technology that revealed a shocking truth. Of the 3 mummies studied, only one, a woman, had died of natural causes. The other 2, both men, were victims of deliberate acts of violence. The first mummy most likely belonged to a man from the Arica culture who lived in what is now northern Chile. He was buried alongside fishing tools, suggesting that he had probably been a member of a coastal community that depended on fishing for its livelihood. At first glance, there appeared to be nothing unusual about his remains, but the CT images told a very different story. Hidden beneath the dried skin was unmistakable evidence of a violent attack. The man had suffered an extremely powerful blow to the head. Afterward, he had been stabbed in the back with a sharp weapon. The wound penetrated deep into the soft tissue, inflicting a fatal injury. If only his skeleton had survived, those crucial injuries would almost certainly have disappeared over time. That is why, for centuries, no one realized that he had actually been murdered. The second case surprised researchers even more. This mummy belonged to a man believed to have come from the region of Arequipa in present-day southwestern Peru. He had been buried with a variety of local artifacts, including cotton textiles, wool from llamas and alpacas, and materials derived from the vizcacha, a rodent native to the Andes Mountains. Initially, researchers found no obvious signs of trauma, but when the CT images appeared on the computer screen, the experts could hardly believe what they were seeing. The man's neck had suffered catastrophic damage. Several vertebrae had been displaced from their natural positions. The joints in his neck had been completely dislocated, a pattern of injury that occurs only when the body is subjected to an extremely powerful twisting force. According to the researchers, these injuries were almost certainly the result of intentional violence. The man may have had his neck broken, or he may have been struck with such tremendous force that his neck snapped instantly. Professor Andreas Nerlich explained that if these individuals had survived only as dry skeletons, almost no archaeologist would have been able to detect injuries to the soft tissues. It was the naturally preserved skin and muscles, protected for more than 1,000 years, that retained the final evidence of how they died. This discovery also opens an entirely new direction for archaeological research. Mummies can do far more than reveal the age or origins of ancient people. They can also expose murders that took place centuries ago. More importantly, they offer valuable insight into the levels of violence that once existed within prehistoric societies. Through this research, scientists have concluded that violence was not limited to the great civilizations or the famous wars recorded in history. Even small fishing communities and people living in the mountains of South America experienced deadly conflicts. And perhaps that is what makes archaeology so extraordinary. Every skeleton, every mummy, and every ancient artifact is like a book that is yet to be fully opened. Some pages have already been read. Others remain unwritten mysteries. But as science continues to advance, especially through technologies such as CT scanning, DNA analysis, and 3D imaging, more and more secrets that once seemed buried forever are finally coming to light. Perhaps in the future, artifacts that remain mysterious today will tell us stories completely different from the ones recorded in history. Dear friends, the 7 archaeological discoveries we've explored together today remind us that history still holds countless unanswered mysteries. From the pregnant woman buried in Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum in China to the 3 skeletons believed to have been treated as vampires in Poland. From the more than 600 mysterious skeletons discovered beneath the ghost cave near the Great Wall of China to Takabbuti's Egyptian mummy, from the blood-red footprint on a coffin from the ancient state of Chu to the 5,000-year-old crystal dagger found in Spain, and finally the South American mummies that revealed evidence of ancient murders. Every one of these discoveries proves that an archaeological find is never just an old artifact or a lifeless skeleton. Each one is a missing piece of the puzzle, helping us better understand humanity's past. Who knows, at this very moment somewhere beneath the ground, there may still be secrets lying undisturbed, secrets powerful enough to change everything we believe to be true about history. What do you think? Or do you see it differently? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy mysterious stories about history and archaeology like these, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next journey into the past. Thank you so much for joining Ancient History. Until next time, goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video.